Hi, and welcome to our second genetics video. In this video, I want you to learn how to use a Punnett Square, which is a tool that's going to help you analyze specific genetics problems in the future. So when Mendel was trying to make sense of all the genetics that he was seeing with his pea plants, he came up with something that really helped analyze all the data that he was seeing. So he came up with a system to give the traits a symbol. So in this case, the purple plant has a capital W. And again, that's the dominant trait. All dominant traits will always be given a capital letter. Why it's a W in this case, I'm not quite sure. But the symbol for the white flower, or the recessive trait, is simply a lowercase w. So same letter, it's just capital or lowercase. Capital for dominant, lowercase for the recessive trait. Now, of course, every organism has genes from both parents that create that organism. So in reality, the genetic makeup is two letters, one from one parent and one from the other parent. So in the case of the purple flowered plant, it's two capital W's, because that plant received two purple genes, or two dominant purple genes or letters or code letters, whatever, from the two parents. So capital W, capital W. It's sort of the opposite for the purple plant. Again, still two letters, but two lowercase letters. To continue to analyze what was going on here, Mendel came up with this system. It's a very simple box to analyze the genes and the traits that were involved in his experiment. So this is his first experiment, and we know from this experiment that all plants in the offspring generation, or the F1 generation, were all purple. So 4 out of 4, or 100% purple plants. But if we start to put the genes here on our square, for example, if we put the two capital W's, kind of break them apart and put them in the two vertical columns of the square, and we take the two recessive lowercase w's from the white flowered parent and put them on the horizontal rows of the larger square, what we can do is we can cross-reference them. And this is exactly what Mendel did to try to make sense of what was going on here. So a capital W from above and a lowercase w from the left-hand side make it so that each square, if we cross-reference each of them, will have two w's, one that's an uppercase W, or in this case the purple gene, or the dominant gene, and one W that is lowercase, which of course corresponds to the recessive white gene. Now, it's important to realize that even though there's a lowercase w in the genetic makeup of all of those purple flowered offspring, the capital W, which represents the dominant purple gene, is overpowering that lowercase w, which means the white. So it's dominant over the white. So again, even though there's a lowercase w, it doesn't mean that some of the flowers are white and some are purple, or that they might be sort of a whitish purple. They're going to all be purple because of that dominant gene that's there. If you have one capital W or two capital W's, both of those instances are going to result in a plant that has purple flowers. This square is called a Punnett Square, and we're going to be using this later on in the video and also in our class activities to try to analyze some more genetics, not necessarily just with pea plants. Now, of course, in his second experiment, Mendel took one of these plants, for example, this one right here, and in the first generation, and he cross-pollinated or self-pollinated that plant. So it was a capital W, lowercase w, purple-flowered plant that he self-pollinated. And he wanted to know what the offspring were like in the next generation from that experiment. Well, it turns out that we can use our square again to try to figure it out. So here it is, all set up, two purple flowered plants with the same genetic makeup, but in this case, they have, each one of them has a capital W and a lowercase w. Do you think you can put the traits and the genes in the square and find out what percentage or what proportion of the next generation will be either purple flowered or white flowered? Go ahead, give it a try. So in your notes, go ahead and replicate that square with the pea plants and their genetic makeup, and see if you can cross-reference each square and see if you can come up with which combinations will result in which color flowers for the offspring in the next generation. If you have to hit pause right now, go ahead and do that so that you can go ahead and try it out, and then click play again and see how your estimate worked out. So hopefully the first thing that you did was put the W's on the square. So in this case, from one parent, a capital W and a lowercase w, and the same thing for the parent on the left-hand side. And of course, all you had to do was cross-reference them. In the first square, there's two capital W's. Of course, that plant will be purple. In the next square, you have a capital W and a lowercase w, and we now know that you just have to have one capital W in order to have that dominant trait present, and of course, this plant will also be purple. In the next square, we have a similar situation going on with sort of a combination genetic makeup with a capital W and a lowercase w, and of course that one will be purple as well. So far, 3 out of 4 of the possibilities are purple-flowered offspring. But in the last square, we can see there's a lowercase w on the left-hand side and a lowercase w up top, and that cross-references to lowercase, and of course that is a white-flowered plant. So hopefully the first thing you did was put the W's, or the genetic makeup code letters, on the square. Of course, a capital W and a lowercase w for each one of our parents in this experiment. And all you gotta do is cross-reference them. So in this case, 2 capital W's in the first square correspond to 2 dominant genes. Dominant is purple, so of course that plant would be purple-flowered. In the next square, you have a uppercase W and a lowercase w, and of course that corresponds to a purple-flowered plant as well. If you're confused about why this plant is purple despite the fact that it has a lowercase w, make sure you go back a couple slides for an explanation of why this genetic combination results in a purple-flowered plant. Of course, in the third square, we also have the same genetic makeup as the previous square, and of course that plant is purple-flowered as well. But in the last square, we have 2 lowercase letters, or 2 recessive letters, and that corresponds to a white-flowered plant. So what we would get is 75%, or 3 out of 4 of all the offspring in this generation will be purple-flowered. And 1 out of every 4, approximately, or 25% of all of the offspring produced in this generation would be white-flowered. And it turns out Mendel did this experiment many, many times, and this was the exact result he got each and every time. So it works with the actual experiment in the garden, and it also works right here using this simple square. Here's another example. Here we have a purple-flowered plant with a capital W and a lowercase w, and a white-flowered plant with 2 lowercase w's, of course. Do you think you can assign the w's to the box and cross-reference them and find out what proportion of the offspring in the next generation will be either purple-flowered or white-flowered? Go ahead, give it a try. Okay, let's analyze this experiment. So there's the 2 W's at the top and the 2 W code letters on the left-hand side, and we're going to cross-reference everything. We have a purple-flowered plant, a white-flowered plant, another purple-flowered possibility, and finally another white-flowered possibility. Take a moment and make sure that we've cross-referenced the capital letter W's with the lowercase letter w's in our boxes, and that we've assigned them the correct trait. Capital W, lowercase w is a purple-flowered plant, and a lowercase w plant is, of course, the recessive plant, which is a white-flowered plant. So there we go. It's 50% purple and 50% white in this scenario. So let's talk about some more terminology here, trying to understand all the genetics. So here we have a white-flowered plant with, of course, 2 lowercase w's. Now, the white flower is the trait, or the characteristic that you're actually looking at. That's the thing that Mendel was actually looking at in the garden. He wanted to know what color flower he was looking at. So that's the trait, or the characteristic. The 2 W's, or the code letters, are what we call the allele combination. A single letter is what we call an allele, hence the reason for calling the double letter combination the allele combination. So the code letter that you choose to assign to a dominant or recessive trait is called an allele. In this case, it's a recessive allele. And we know that the uppercase W is the dominant allele. So in each case, you're going to have a recessive allele and a dominant allele. And now I can stop calling them code letters and actually start calling them alleles. In this case, the recessive allele or the dominant allele.